And welcome to a special Friday night edition of Hannity. And tonight, the walls are now closing in on the Biden White House. The Atlantic is now calling for Joe to step aside. Biden was just slammed by the New York Times for being a deadbeat granddad, also USA Today. And here's fake news. CNN, quote, the slow pace of Biden's reelection campaign feeds Democrats' 2024 anxiety. Axios, meanwhile, exposed Biden's volatile temper, referring to him as, quote, old yeller. Whistleblowers continue to allege serious crimes committed by Joe and Hunter, including bribery, tax violations, money laundering. We'll learn a lot more next week. And let's not forget, cocaine and now other drugs, we find out, were discovered in the West Wing of Joe's White House. But, of course, they haven't found the culprit and they're not looking anymore. Biden's trip abroad was an outright disaster. And take a look at your screen. Well, this was in Finland. Joe nibbling, if you will, and trying to kiss a terrified-looking toddler. Creepy Joe is back. But let's be clear. Joe Biden's always been creepy, weird, and not very smart. But to make matters worse, his cognitive decline has now rendered him totally, completely inept. You decide.
President Zelensky, how soon after the war would you like to be in NATO? How soon after the war would you like to join NATO?
An hour and 20 minutes.
Here we go.
You guys ask really insightful questions. Vladimir and I shouldn't be so familiar. Mr. Zelensky and I talked about the kind of guarantees we could make in the meantime. The Minister Yacoba, daughter of Ireland. You can tell that's a Freudian slip. I'm thinking of home. The daughter of Iceland, and I want to say I think we've had a very productive summit. Soon NATO will be the 32nd freestanding, have 32 freestanding members, ceasing its attacks on its inhumane attacks on Russia. By Russia on Ukraine.
How embarrassing, right? And by the way, Joe, President Zelensky is not Vladimir Putin. Anyway, Biden then proceeded to trip up the stairs. Here we go. Whoopsie daisy. Once again. Oh, there it is. Capping a week where the president was often lost, confused, and dazed, while other leaders were looking on with just sheer embarrassment. Joe Biden is not fit to be your commander-in-chief right now, much less another term. Mark my words, he is one major fall away from what will be a massive push by Democrats to get him off the ticket. Everyone on the planet realizes this, except maybe Joe Biden himself. Now, even the president's own radical staffers probably see the handwriting on the wall. They're the ones that are actually running the country into the ground, while Biden apparently is constantly recuperating in Delaware and at Camp David. And could we get a list of the visitors that go to see him every weekend? How many doctors might be on that list? And speaking of which, today on his way to Camp David, he took no questions and forgot to salute the Marine. That's an important thing to do, Joe. You're the commander-in-chief. Now, Biden is such a terrible excuse for a president. Democrats who were once ridiculed and mocked by their own party, including Robert Kennedy Jr., Marianne Williamson, Cornel West, well, they're all gaining what is serious traction in the primary polls. And if I had to make a bet, I would guess that California Governor Gavin Newsom is receiving an endless stream of texts. He wouldn't answer that question when I interviewed him, begging him to enter this race. Take a look. How many times does your phone ping a day, people saying you need to get in this race because they agree with me that he's not up to the job?
I see where you're going with that.
I'm asking.
No, and I'm not answering.
I'm not answering. I think that's an answer. Anyway, how embarrassing for Joe Biden. His fellow Democrats, they are ready to send him out to pasture. But it's not just his steep cognitive decline. Well, put it simply, Joe Biden is slimy. His family's access peddling and sketchy foreign business deals are a massive, real problem now. We're going to learn a lot more next week. His refusal to recognize his own 4-year-old granddaughter, frankly, is reprehensible and downright immoral and cruel. cruel. His history of plagiarism and the nonstop lying and storytelling is a cause for concern to everybody in this country. He just tells outright provable lies regularly. And of course, the media has been protecting him, maybe not so much now. And his behavior around young women and small children, yeah, it is creepy, it is weird. So if you're a Democrat and you're watching tonight, ask yourself, would you hire Joe Biden in any job in the real world? Would you hire him to work at McDonald's or Home Depot? He's been a lawyer for decades. Would you let Joe Biden represent you in a court of law, argue your case before a judge and a jury? Would you be comfortable with your life in his hands? Would you trust him with any task, big or small? Now, if the answer to those questions is no, you have an obligation to replace him, not only on the ticket, but as president, with someone that is actually aware, articulate, competent. This is a constitutional republic. You do not have to rubber stamp his reelection bid. And let's face it, Biden's poll numbers are historically bad. There is a big chance that he loses come November 2024. So make no mistake, tonight there is a chance that Democrats, they will be the ones to move on from Joe Biden before the election and replace him. And that is why the walls are now closing in on the Biden White House. Now, coming up, we're going to break down Biden's scandals in detail throughout the show.